Well, that I guess that nicely segues into our second topic. Should beginners attempt long range? And the segue there is the fact that if digital gives you a nice robust signal that you don't have to do much thinking, then I guess a lot of guys are buying big quads or fixed wing, plugging them in and sending them out without having done any kind of prior forethought. So what do you reckon, Tristan? Should beginners be attempted long range? That's what you're kind of known for at the minute.
So I'm going to start off with a caveat here. I am a beginner comparative to this conference call, yeah. And I got into long range flying with digital. I'd never tried analog before. It's sort of analog was a sort of evolution from digital for me for long range. I think what I have an issue with at the moment though is bind and flies and their availability. There was a Facebook post I saw the other day where a guy was asking quite obvious beginner questions, like really, really basic questions. He put a photograph of this bind and fly, this Moz 7 or whatever it was, and had circled the antennas and asking, what is this? What is this? I don't understand what this is. And it was a 9-inch quad, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, goodness me, if you're... You know, I don't want to be the gatekeeper. Nobody wants to be the gatekeeper. But should you really be flying a 9-inch quad if you don't know what an antenna is? That's a really tricky one. Now, I got into long range with 7-inch quads, you know, 5-inch and then 7-inch. So I definitely did have a progression, you know. I like to think I'm quite sensible about the places that I pick to go flying as well. You know, there's never any people around. I make sure of that when I'm sending the birds out. But goodness, it's a really tricky one. You don't want to be the gatekeeper, but I think there should be a slight line somewhere, and I think it's got to come from the manufacturers. I don't think there should be such readily available huge drones like that are clearly for the hobbyist. Yeah. You know, they're not for industrial use, available to buy as a bind and fly, because it's clear to me that some people are getting that as their first drone. And that is just an accident waiting to happen.
Of course, the manufacturer's going to turn around and say, what you do with this is none of our business. And
yes, absolutely.
Different countries have different regulations. So, yeah. No,
But hover testing a 9-inch drone, that's a dangerous job. You know, you don't know how it's going to behave at all until you,
I agree with you with staging things out. When I first got into FPV, 3-inch quads were my thing. I must have had about a dozen of them at different setups, and I had to be convinced to actually build a 5-inch drone. But I remember kind of building a drone and flying it out 100 meters and coming back and landing, and, you know, hands were sweating and, you know, shaking, and then evaluating how did that go, what could have been better, how did my batteries go, and then going, right, let's go out to 250 meters, and each time going out to my distance that I had chosen, and no matter what happened, turning around and coming back and staging out further and further and further and building up that knowledge base of what the craft's doing, what the battery's doing, what the video system is doing, coming back, landing, evaluating, and then going again and slowly building up to that longer and longer and further distance. But yeah, with 9 and 10-inch quad bind and flies digital systems, there's guys are going to plug that in. See on YouTube that people have been flying about 15, 20 kilometers and attempting to do that on the very first go without...
I mean,
before you can run.
Even if they don't do that on the first go, even if they do what you say, you know, they're like staging it out, you know, which I see plenty of people doing actually with these things. It's a 10-inch drone you're doing that with. It's not a 3-inch drone anymore. You know, are you really sure that there's no one around there? Are you really sure that it's going to behave the way you want it to behave? You know, it's a lot more jeopardy there. I think, you know, I mean, those things are well over a kilogram, maybe even 2 kilograms. You know, that's a big weight to fall down compared to a 3-inch, which was probably about 500 grams max. You know?
And it was actually those weights that pushed me towards fixed wing, because for my 7-inch quad, I'd kind of gone from the 3-inch quad, and then I got convinced to build the 5, and then I built the 7, and I realised that I had to load it up with batteries to go further. And the batteries were heavier, but I wasn't, you know, doubling the capacity doesn't mean you're doubling the range. And I got to a point where I thought to myself, hold on, I've got so much weight hanging in the sky here. If I went to fixed wing, I could reduce that weight right down and fly 2 or 3 times further. And for me, it lowered kind of the dangers or the jeopardy. And now I've decided to actually swing it completely the other way and see how far I can fly little whips, and basically how small can I get something to go far. And 1 kilometer with a tiny whip that doesn't have a GPS for me has just as much excitement and jeopardy as flying a fixed wing 30 kilometers that has returned to home and so on.
Oh yeah.
And I'm liking what I'm seeing on YouTube with more people flying smaller and smaller things and trying to push the limit on them, because it will hopefully show people that you don't need to go out and buy a 2 kilogram 10-inch quad to send it far. Of course, they're going to want to get the shot at the top of the mountain, which a tiny boat can't do.
But it's marketing as well. I mean, you take, I'm going to name a brand here. You can always bleep it out. But take the iFlight Helium, for example. That's a classic one for me. You know, it's a very shiny looking, sleek, 10-inch drone, right? You know, it's designed for you to look at that thing and go, oh yeah, that's cool. I want to fly that, you know. It's that kind of thing that I think needs to be toned down a little bit with these larger multi-rotors, you know. That's a very, very dangerous bit of kit that you're shoving in a, you know, that you're marketing like that, you know. But I don't know. It's If you looked at all my quads, they don't look shiny at all. In fact, they're covered in grass and dents and all that kind of stuff. I don't really go for that kind of, you know, looking good thing. But definitely people do, and definitely it catches your eye in adverts and that sort of stuff. So, you know, perhaps yeah.
There's 3 things here that they're all misconceptions. And it's all opinions. Like, any long-range pilot will tell you that, majority of long-range pilots will say that 10 kilometers, that's where long-range begins. Like, you know, before that, that's not long-range, you know, and you're talking about large quads and stuff like that. Yes. People should not go and buy a bind and flyer that big without owning something in advance beforehand and actually doing the training and like learning about it to start with, because the people that do go and buy these things to begin with, it's about the accountability. Like, that's what I'm talking about. Are they willing to be accountable if they hurt someone? If they damage something? Like, the risks involved with that. Like, my 15-inch, I fully load that thing. You know, that's 10 kilos up in the air. Like, it goes nuts. And people going and buying fixed wings, like the Chapitos and things like that, and the Mojitos, you know, and the He-Wings, I think, were like the, you know, T1 was the re-inspire of, you know, fixed wings and people getting into foamies, and because they were plug and play based. So they made so much accessible to everyone again. And that's why there's been a big influx in fixed wing again, and people going and doing these long range missions and things. But, you know, and people complaining, saying they're not getting the ranges that they want with these digital systems because they've been from that plug and play background. They don't understand that their flight controller can't go and put out 2 amps.
Yeah, it goes back to what we were saying
and stuff like that.
Yeah, it goes back to what we were saying in the first question there, you know, not knowing the limitations, not understanding how everything works, you know. It's great. It's super easy to get going, and then you get going, and then when things go bad, you don't know how to handle it. Like when I got started, I was initially flying line of sight. And so I picked up this drone from, who was the company? It was like a Storm 250. I think it was HeliPal was the company. And I didn't have the money at the time for the goggles. So I was flying that thing line of sight. And I was flying at this farm where my daughter was riding horses, and they had there was a mountain off on the side there. And so I was flying this thing just basically in loops around, and I kept getting farther out. And then it got to the point where it got far enough out that I really couldn't tell the orientation, but I had figured out enough to know how to basically just bank it really. So I was still flying like,
could you still hear it?
Stabilized mode, you know.
Could you still hear it?
I knew enough.
No, so completely out of your
No,
sensors.
no, I couldn't hear it.
Nice.
Oh yeah, it was I could see a dot in the sky. And so I was just trying to do on the sticks to basically do a real slow banked curve and hopefully get it to come back to me. And I finally got it to where it was coming back to me. But about the time that I did that, it was coming toward me and then it started falling gradually out of the sky and eventually just dropped out of the sky.
Oh,
Lost it on the
yeah.
mountain somewhere or the other. Yeah. So, but it's one of those things where, you have to learn, you know, what your limitations are, how long this thing can fly and, how far away are you and, all that stuff. And with all these systems that are, bind and fly, super easy to get started with, you don't have
for
that
sure.
learning curve, you're at a point where you can just kind of go and you can push things to the limits,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
and can get you in trouble in a hurry.
Man, and or like you talk about design, something saying looking sleek and cool, and looking cool sometimes
Oh, yeah.
is not the best
most of the time
way or
say.
design or
Yes.
functionality fit the purpose. Like, what is it with mounting a GPS right next to your VTX antennas?
Convenience, yeah.
It's actually the worst possible place to put your GPS. Like the rule of separation with antennas and stuff like that, and it's like, oh, because it looks cool, that's where the 3D print is. And it's not about the functionality of it. It's like what looks the best. I guess you can flip the coin either way with that. And I run GPSs on pretty much all my drones, including my 5-inch drones and things like that. And that's for multiple reasons. That's one, for safety, two, for laziness and filming and stuff like that. I can put pause hold on and just let it hover there while I do something or etc. But yeah, like you can get a GPS for anything from $15 up, kind of thing. And I do that because it suits my application and I know what it does and I've tested it and it suits my needs. But, if you don't set your GPS up right, that can bring you unstuck completely as well.
Oh, yeah.
And people don't understand too, of like your GPS, set home point once or set it on ARM. You crash when you're away and stuff, and you still got video and you rearm the quad. People don't understand that's your home point again. So if they go and hit return to home, it's not coming back to you. It's going to where
I
you
rely
crashed.
heavily on the home arrow, I must say. Even if I'm only 100 meters away from myself, sometimes if I've sort of flipped around a little bit, where the heck am I? So yes, I'm like you, Dave. I've got a GPS on all my quads,
Very
and you can
easy.
get them now that are only like 2.5 grams. There's no real excuse for not sticking one on anymore.
The home arrow, though, you got to be careful of its accuracy. I mean, there's so many times I've flown out, and I know I've got wind turbines where I normally fly, and they're like a little breadcrumb trail. I fly to the first wind turbine, and then I can see the next two on the hill. I fly to those two, and I can see the next one further in the distance. And then if anything happens, I can just follow those wind turbines back. And there's been times where I've turned around and the home arrow's been cocked off to the left, and I've went, that doesn't seem right. And I followed the home arrow, and it's taken me to, 2 or 3 kilometers away. And as I've got...
Before it's kind of sorted itself out again. Yeah.
And then you're right, oh, right, okay, I'm turning around and I'm heading in the right direction now. But I've just wasted, a minute or two's worth of battery flying off in the wrong direction only to correct myself. And, if you're flying and the wind changes or you're kind of cutting it fine on your battery capacity, that extra kilometre or two that you've just deviated off course could make the difference of the quad getting back, landing at your feet, or a kilometre or two away, or,
I guess, when you're talking about long range, it's totally different. I mean, of course, you shouldn't rely wholly on one single thing like the home arrow. You're absolutely right. You should be planning your route, which you do. But yeah, goodness, I mean, it goes back to knowing your equipment, doesn't it? Knowing its limitations. Like if you haven't got a compass attached to GPS, for example, if you're spinning around, it doesn't really know which way you're spinning until you move forward a bit. It's knowing the limitations and having that base knowledge there, which if you buy a 9-inch bind and fly as your first quad, it's going to be a hell of a learning curve. Whereas if you're learning all that with a 3-inch or a 5-inch, it's a much, for one, it's less expensive if you lose it. For another, it's much less dangerous if it goes out of control.
I was just about to say I have a Recon 35,
certainly,
which I think if you're wanting to get into long range, is a fantastic kind of quad to do so, because it's smaller, it's lighter, it takes the two 18650 cells that you can pop into the top. So even if you're new to the hobby, you don't necessarily need to go out and buy yourself a lipo charger and loads of lipos. You can go down to the vape shop and get these cells and one of those cell chargers. So it's kind of a cheaper, easier, less technical entry point. And yes, while you may not be able to fly 15 kilometers with it, you can cut your teeth on flying long range, learning those key skills, flying it out to 5 kilometers, which for freestyle pilots is long range. Flying to the end of the other side of the field is long range for freestyle. So it's still long range. You're still flying far, and the jeopardy and the kind of the enjoyment of flying long range is still there. It's just been shrunken, miniaturized, and that's where you cut your teeth. It weighs, 200 grams. If it falls out of the sky, it's going to hurt someone, but it's not going to hurt as bad as 2 kilograms falling out of the sky. Cut your teeth on something like that. And even the smaller 1S versions of those kind of quads, walk before you run.
That's the key. Yeah.
I agree.
You can have just as much fun with them as the big quads, and if you get yourself to the base of that mountain, you could probably still fly it to the top of the mountain and get those cinematic shots on your 04 light unit or whatever that you have installed in it.
I mean, there's that LR4 as well, isn't there? The LR4, that's a really sort of well-designed. I know a couple of guys in Canada that are using that and really love it, and you can actually long range with that. Well, I don't know about 10 kilometers. You're always limited by the battery, aren't you? But they're designed for that kind of use.
Go further.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. For sure.
So no, I think with the way things are going, 9 and 10 inch quad should be seen as like for advanced situations, and is there much need unless you're you're needing to carry a massive payload for some reason? Is there a need for them? I don't know. Don't think so.
But even start looking at VTOL fixed wings, like instead of a 10-inch quad, like a T1 VTOL.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Will outfly a 10-inch quad.
Anything that produces its own lift, Yeah.
And but it's 30% of the cost and much, much safer.
Oh yeah.
Like there is so many alternative options out there to get started, as Tom mentioned. Like, that's cool if you want to burn money and stuff, go buy 2. But I think the whole 7-inch and above, walk before you try to run, crawl before you even try to walk. Bind flies are there for a reason. That's cool. Go and buy one and then try fly that for a bit, then decide to build.
In tree surgery, we've got a top-handled chainsaws, right? So you've got normal chainsaws, we've got a handle at the back, and you've got a top-handle chainsaw, and there's no actual law around it, but what what retailers have done is they only allow you to buy one of these things if you've got a certain ticket, a professional ticket, because they're stupidly dangerous in the wrong hands. I mean, they kick back and it's in your face. So maybe something like that is needed for these kind of bind and flies. But goodness, more regulations. That's what we need, eh?
So the takeaway is: should beginners attempt long range? Well, I suppose we were all beginners once, and we all attempted long range as beginners. So we can't say no, beginners shouldn't be attempting long range. What we can say is, be sensible about it.
Not with a 9-inch.
Not with a 9 or 10 inch. Start smaller, cut your teeth, 2, 3, 4, 5 kilometers is still long range with the appropriate quad. Start with that. And then, and only if you really need to, go for the 9 and 10 inch quads if you're...
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, they are great to fly, don't get me wrong. Big quads are such fun. The adrenaline rush that you get when you hear that thing buzzing past your head is, it's something else. But yeah, be sensible about it. They're really bloody dangerous things.
Yeah. Don't be flying them in the city centre then.
Guerrilla whooping in there. Yeah. Helion 10 in Sainsbury's.
But as what Tom's doing... Yeah, but as what Tom's doing, whatever you've got at the moment...
Yes, absolutely.
As far as it can go.
Yeah. I mean, you say that it's not long range until it's after 10 kilometers. I mean, that's true to to the letter of the law maybe, but long range is anything really that you struggle to get the quad back. So if that's a tiny whoop, bloody hell, like a kilometer is a long way to go and look for a tiny whoop. Goodness me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I was saying about like the whole misinterpretation thing of social media, the hype of long range, like the long range Facebook groups and stuff. They don't recognize, long range to be anything, under 10 kilometers. You start talking long range when you're with a digital system.
I think
over 40
with my
kilometers.
little whoops, I use a metric of kilometer per gram to kind of pit each of my small whoops against each other. And I think if that became the standard for all long range in inverted commas, then people would start to say, well, I flew that quad 15 kilometers, but if it weighed 4 kilograms loaded up with batteries, then you start to realize that actually your kilograms per, or your kilometers per gram ratio
it's terrible.
Isn't actually is terrible compared to a tiny whoop that weighs 40 grams and you've sent out 1.5 kilometers or 2 kilometers. When you start to do the math and the ratio, you realize actually there's more merit with the tiny whip going 2 kilometers than there is with a quad that's loaded up with 4 kilograms of batteries going 15 kilometers.
Yeah, I mean, you could just keep strapping batteries onto a quad, couldn't you? And yes, it would go that 100%. Little bit further each time, What's the challenge in that?
Returns.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
That's it for me. It was diminish returns and then move to a fixed wing. Sometimes you can't see the wood for the trees. You want to fly to the top of the mountain. You go to the bottom of the mountain and you realize the tree canopies or whatever are covering the summit, so you have to move yourself back 2 or 3 kilometers just to actually get a view of the mountain that you want to fly. And then with the quad, you're wasting 2 or 3 kilometers worth of battery just to getting to your kind of your original starting point. Anyway, I could probably talk about that for ages because I'm passionate about it, but we'll move on.